Welcome to Exposing Workplace Bullying, where we pull back the curtain and have real conversations about workplace abuse. I'm your host, Dr. Jan Kircher. This is episode 4, The Bullies Playbook. In this episode, we're going to talk about the tactics bullies use to help you better understand what's happening. And when I say tactics, I'm talking about the way the bully treats you, how they are abusing you. You know, the eye rolls, the interruptions, the cutting you down in front of others, or the emails that twist your words. Those are not random. Those are tactics. Bully tactics can be covert or overt, sometimes subtle, sometimes obvious. They come in all shapes and sizes. A bully might lean on one for a while, but often they pile on multiple tactics at the same time to maximize pain. There's no one size fits all here or a blueprint that bullies follow. They do whatever they can get away with. So bullying doesn't look the same for everyone. How my bullies bullied me is more likely different than how your bully is bullying you. Sure, bullies use different tactics, but the motive is always the same: to hurt, to push you out, and to grab as much power as they possibly can. And the other thing, they have no bottom. If they think they can get away with it, they will. Please don't fool yourself into thinking they're not trying to get you fired or to make you quit. Because trust me, they are. And when that's the motive, it doesn't always stop with one person or one bully. Sometimes you have more than one person coming after you, each using different tactics, which only multiplies the harm for you. That's exactly what happened in my department. There were 2 of us being bullied at one time, but they came after her with much harsher tactics than they did me. The chair of our department would show up at my colleague's office pretty regularly, block the doorway, and scream threats at her. My colleague didn't have any recourse. She couldn't leave. She was essentially trapped. When I watched what she went through and thought about what was happening to me, I realized something. It isn't just about knowing you're being bullied. It's about recognizing how you're being bullied, the tactics they're using against you. And that's important because it's the key to fighting back with a strong strategic response. And where does that start? With knowing the kinds of tactics bullies use: verbal, nonverbal, cyber, emotional, and yes, even physical. Let's start with verbal bullying. A pretty common tactic of bullies. This is when they use their words as weapons. Most of us know what this looks like: yelling, swearing, name-calling, or put-downs. It can be loud and in your face, or quiet behind your back. Sometimes it's constant interruptions, mocking how you talk or what you're saying, or sarcasm brushed off as a joke, but it cuts like a fresh wound. It can be relentless nitpicking or even lies told about your work to make you look incompetent. Verbal bullying is constant and ongoing. Over time, you might even build up an immunity because it happens so often that it doesn't even faze you anymore. You get used to it. And then there are those moments that go further. Loud, public, and deliberately cruel. A friend of mine went through this when a colleague screamed at her at the top of his lungs, calling her a bigot because of her religious views. It wasn't about a difference of opinion. It was about attacking her character, discrediting her in front of others, and making her feel small and unsafe. He knew that she valued her religious beliefs, so it was a way to really hurt her and embarrass her. And here's the other piece. This happened while other people were standing there, hearing every word, and they did nothing. That silence and inaction adds to the damage because it leaves the person being attacked even more isolated and confused. Verbal abuse rarely stands alone. It's often paired with nonverbal abuse, the silent signals that cut just as deep without a word being spoken. Think about the eye rolls, the smirks, the crossed arms, or the clenched fist while someone is yelling, the cold shoulder, being deliberately ignored, or someone turning their back on you. Nonverbal abuse often gets downplayed because it seems minor, but that's a huge mistake. One eye roll might sting, but when it happens over and over, it turns into something else, like the death by 1,000 cuts. I saw this play out in meetings. Every time I spoke, people would roll their eyes or shrug their shoulders. Sometimes they whispered insults under their breath and started side conversations. It might look small from the outside, but living through it, you feel it. It chips away at you. Nonverbal abuse is designed to make you feel small without even saying a word. Bullies didn't stop at words or body language. They took advantage of every change, and technology handed them a brand new weapon: cyberbullying. Cyberbullying has exploded through emails, texts, and workplace platforms. With phones in our hands and remote work blurring boundaries, the abuse does not stop when we leave the office. It follows us home, onto the couch, even into the bedroom. Abuse that once ended at the office door now shows up on your screen at any time of day. I've seen colleagues get late-night texts tearing apart their work, or humiliating emails copied to the whole team. I've watched people silenced in chat platforms, ignored in conversations, or blatantly excluded from threads on purpose. And the damage is real because the words don't just disappear. They sit in your inbox. They get forwarded, and the audience for the abuse grows. I've lived this too. Back when I was teaching social work, I refused to put my work email on my personal phone. For me, that was about setting strong professional boundaries. My employer didn't pay for my phone bill, so they didn't get access 24/7 to me. And honestly, part of it was also because they were bullying me. But a colleague, I'll call her the boss's minion, would answer emails at all hours, not because it was required, but to prove her loyalty and score points with him. So she became the standard. And my boss told me I needed to be more accessible by email. It was his way of saying, Jan, put your work email on your personal phone. But I pushed back. I said, show me the policy where I'm required to do that. And of course, there wasn't one. But later, it still showed up in my evaluation. One of the few perks of cyber abuse, if you can even call it that, is that when people come after you by email, you've got receipts. And I kept plenty. If my bully sent me an email, I saved it. Say what you will, but I had evidence, and I still do. In fact, I found this one buried in an old digital file. I'm going to read it to you. It's a long one, and I really thought about cutting it down, but I think it's important to hear it in full. Here it is verbatim. Errors, typos, all of it. I should also say parts of this email were bolded and written in all caps. I'll try to convey that as I read so you get the full effect of how it came across in my inbox. Subject: regarding promotion weaknesses follow-up. This, my official notice to you and others, to not communicate with me in any form if it has to do with this circus. I'm also notifying administration about this, and that any such commutation from you and others will be viewed as harassment. And trust me, I will take the appropriate action. If you think I have committed a crime, please notify the police to do their job and stop policing me. The conversation is over and make. If any of you in the future send out emails which include vague and or unsubstantiated accusations that question the integrity of myself, my colleagues, or the department, I ask respectfully that you leave me off the list. I have no time for it and will spend no more time puzzling over the meanings or to the events of which they refer. I wish I could say this was a one-off, but emails like this were pretty regular. And I always wondered if she realized the hypocrisy. Accusing me of vague and unsubstantiated claims while doing exactly that herself. It's ironic, isn't it? If I'm honest, I find it painful to revisit those days of bullying. It isn't just the email that hurts. It's the fact that the person who wrote it was not only hired for a full-time faculty position, but later received tenure and promotion. Personally, that's not the kind of person I think should be a social work professor. But I guess I forgot. I probably deserved it and provoked it, whatever she did to me. You may wonder or be asking yourself why I kept this email after all this time, especially when it still stings. For me, it represents the reality of what I went through. It's a reminder that it was real, that I was bullied. It wasn't something I imagined or made up. And that's why I've kept it. Not to relive the pain, but to make sure I never forget what bullying in the workplace can look like, and how it felt. Now let's move on to another tactic that bullies use. It's the one people often act like doesn't really happen that often. It's physical bullying. Physical abuse is about a bully using their body for harm and intimidation, invading your space, blocking your path, slamming a fist on the table, or using their presence to scare and control. Sometimes it's even throwing objects, grabbing something out of your hands, moving your belongings, or cornering you so you can't leave. Whether it's subtle or obvious, the message is the same: to make you feel unsafe. Sometimes people laugh about this kind of thing, like in the office when Jim puts Dwight's stuff in the vending machine. When Jim does it, it's funny on TV. But in real life, when your office equipment or personal belongings get moved or tampered with, it's not a prank. It's on purpose. It's bullying. And there is nothing, not one thing, funny about it. We often assume that physical bullying isn't very common, that it rarely, if ever, happens. But I think it's much more common than we realize. I learned this early on in my research about workplace bullying. In my very first presentation, I was part of a panel on workplace bullying, and we were presenting to a group of social work educators. We had approximately 50 participants, and we handed them a survey about workplace bullying. And more than half of them said they had experienced some form of physical violence at work. Since then, I've known this is real, not just because it happened to me, but because I've continued to hear the stories of people experiencing physical bullying again and again. Physical abuse takes on a different weight because it threatens your personal safety and your body. Any type of physical violence is wrong, but there's something especially disempowering about having colleagues who engage in it, and an organization that doesn't care enough to do a damn thing about it or protect you. But of course, not all bullying is that obvious or leaves bruises. Some of it doesn't. Emotional bullying leaves scars. And that's the tactic we're going to talk about next. Emotional bullying goes after you, your identity, your place, your worth as a person and a professional. It shows up as exclusion, humiliation, manipulation, gossip, and rumors. At its core, it's an attack on who you are. And what makes it so insidious is that it often masks itself as ordinary work. Like when your boss, or more accurately, your bully, gives you an evaluation based on lies and false narratives. On the surface, it looks like they're just doing their job by critiquing your work. But in reality, it's abuse because what they're saying isn't true. Or when I had a bully boss who played games with deadlines, he'd toss out a random idea in a meeting, forget about it, then suddenly bring it up weeks later and demand to know why it wasn't done. It looked like he was setting expectations. It was a setup to make me look incompetent. That's the nature of emotional bullying. It keeps you off balance and makes you feel like you're always failing, even when the problem isn't you. Gaslighting is one of the most damaging tactics. It's when bullies twist your words, rewrite history, and make you doubt your own reality. A colleague of mine once said it perfectly. They want you to believe their version of what happened and not your own eyes. They want you to question your own reality. And that's the power of gaslighting. It's not about hurting you. It's about getting everyone else to believe their story too. Over time, you start to wonder if maybe you really are the problem. And if you're doubting yourself and you're questioning your credibility, why would human resources believe you? Why would anyone believe you? I saw this play out firsthand. When my colleague came around the table at me, that was physical abuse. But when the people sitting there later claimed it never happened and said I lied, that was gaslighting. They denied reality and backed the bully's version of events. Why? Because it made the chair look powerful, while I looked like the troublemaker they wanted me to be. My truth-telling played right into their hands, and too often, we know which hand wins. Another gaslighting tactic worth a quick mention is the bully who's always feigning victimhood. They flip the script to make it seem like they're the one being mistreated, leaving you defending yourself while their behavior goes unchecked. And later, you're raked over the coals just for speaking up. Bullies also pull in other people. They rarely act in isolation. Sometimes they spread rumors to turn colleagues against you or recruit allies who carry their message. Other times, they lean on authority figures like supervisors or HR to back up their story. And sometimes they even get bystanders to do the bullying for them. The hardest part about emotional bullying is how you take it everywhere with you. Long after the meeting is over or an email has been sent, you're still replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said something wrong or if you should have handled something another way, doubting yourself in ways you never did before. But here's the truth. It doesn't matter which tactics bullies use, the impact is the same. It's painful. It hurts. And it's rarely just one tactic. Bullies mix them together. Words, looks, emails, exclusion. It can be verbal, nonverbal, cyber, physical, or emotional. Of course, we couldn't cover every single tactic that a bully uses. So your bully might be using things that we didn't mention or cover. What matters most is that you recognize it, the behavior, whether it's yelling with a threatening posture, a follow-up email that twists what's happened, or gossip piled on exclusion. However it shows up or what it looks like to you, it's still workplace bullying. Understanding the categories and tactics helps you see the abuse for what it is. And knowing what your bully is up to is the first step in fighting back. That's why next week's episode is so important. We're going to talk about documentation. I'll break down what you should be documenting and what you can do with it beyond reporting. So make sure you join me for episode 5. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this episode hit home, check out stopbullyculture.com, where I share tools, resources, and real talk to help you deal with workplace abuse. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Until next time.
They gaslight and plot, play their games. Witnesses smile, you're part of the shame. Your boss stays silent, closing the door. How many voices will they ignore? The bully lies, the brave get burned. The office watches, no lessons learned. Your boss hides, truth gets colder. It's time to stop the bully culture.